This conference will now be recorded.
Just doing an audio test. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Canova. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yeah, well, wait,
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, I believe we do. I'm sure.
Good morning to all. It is now 9:30 and welcome you to the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Policy Board meeting. We will have roll call and certification of the quorum, which I will read. And it states, reads that everyone identify themselves first when speaking so we can more adequately record the activities of the meeting. All lines have been muted by the administrator to minimize the additional noise and feedback. You may unmute your line at any time to request acknowledgement from the chair. Staff will be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting to assure we do not overlook anyone wishing to participate in the discussion. Please indicate your presence by saying aye when your name is called during a roll call. Anyone who wishes to identify themselves following the roll call of members will be invited to do so. I will now ask our clerk to certify we have followed the approved procedures for the appropriate notice of this meeting and the means by which we are convening.
Good morning, everyone. This is Ms. Mueller. I can certify that we have followed the approved procedures, and I will go ahead and take attendance by roll call. Let's start with Charles City County, Mr. Koda. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
I am here.
Mr. Holland.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Mr. Winslow. Ms. Haley. City of Richmond, Mr. Addison.
Here.
Ms. Gray.
Here.
Ms. Lynch.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Newbill. Mr. Hilbert. Mr. Jones, Ms. Larson, Ms. Robertson, Goochland County, Mr. Lumpkin,
Here.
Mr. Spoonhour,
Here.
Mr. Kilduff, Ms. Luscolette, Hanover County, Mr. Davis, Mr. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Flagg, Ms. Pritchard, Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon,
Here.
Mr. Thornton,
Here.
Mr. Brannan, New Kent County, Ms. Page,
Here. Aye.
Mr. Tiller, Mr. Evelyn, Powhatan County, Mr. Nordvik, Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Chardine, Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Spagna, Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge, GRTC Transit System, Ms. Tim,
Present.
Ms. Adams, RMTA, Ms. Dean,
Present.
Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Mann, Mr. Riblett,
Present.
CTAC, Mr. Richwine, Mr. Basham, DRPT, Ms. DeBrew,
Present.
Ms. Dubinsky, FHWA, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Duran,
This Federal Highway.
I'm sorry, there's some disturbance. Could you repeat that?
Federal Highways present.
And what is your name? Is it Mr. Nelson or Mr. Duran?
That was Mr. Duran.
Thank you. The FTA, Mr. Koenig. Ride Finders, Ms. Tisdale,
Here.
Ms. Ruffin. And the DOAV, Mr. Burnett. That concludes the attendance by roll call, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. At this time, we will have the statement regarding virtual meetings. Mr. Parsons.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
No residents are to be moved until we receive all pending test results. Moving the residents throughout the building.
We'd ask that people mute their lines if they're not speaking.
The facility. EUs began looking into Westport rehabilitation after a
We will
year.
ask everyone online and on your phones that you will mute them. If you're not speaking,
Both sides contracted the virus. A relative tested negative both times, but soon that family member experienced faint breathing. They were rushed to the hospital where doctors.
Okay, sounds like we're ready. The statement regarding virtual meetings, and I'm sharing it on the screen as well, if you're able to see. Since the governor declared the state of emergency on March 12th, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, state and local governmental bodies have been providing for the continuity of government by meeting remotely by telephonic or electronic means in compliance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, the Commonwealth's emergency and other applicable laws, guidance provided by the Attorney General, and their respective legal counsel. On April 22nd, the General Assembly approved a budget amendment to authorize all public bodies, including regional bodies such as Plan RVA and the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, likewise, to meet by electronic means without a physical quorum assembled together during a governor-declared state of emergency, as long as certain conditions are met, so as to provide for the continuity of governmental operations. This new authority is effective immediately. The bylaws of the RRTPO Policy Board define a quorum of the body to be 14 of the 27 votes. The 2020 COVID-19 virus makes it impractical and unsafe, even potentially life-threatening, for a quorum of this size to physically assemble in one location, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2A3. Further, the virus makes it impractical and unsafe for the public and the agency staff to gather in the same location to participate in this meeting. The health, safety, and welfare of our community is of paramount importance. Therefore, we have determined the appropriateness and eligibility to conduct today's meeting of the RRTPO electronically pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2 and related legislation approved by the General Assembly of Virginia, and in light of the Governor's state of emergency declaration for COVID-19. The convening of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization has been determined necessary in order to continue the necessary business of the organization. The matters included on the agenda address important and essential matters continuing the work of government, and therefore it is appropriate to convene during this time. While we do not know the exact duration of the current practice of electronic meetings, we will continue to function in this manner until such time as it is deemed advisable to return to in-person meetings. RRTPO staff have provided notice of this meeting and the means by which we are virtually gathered to members of the public. Notice was provided on June 22nd, 2020 through posting on the Plan RVA website and distribution of email notification to members, alternates, and known interested parties, including the media. In order to comply with the provisions of Virginia law and to improve accessibility to the discussions intended for today, this meeting will be recorded. Audio-visual recordings of the meeting will be posted on the Plan RVA website within 48 hours of the meeting. Any members of the public wishing to address the RRTPO Policy Board were invited to submit comments via email until the close of business one day prior to the meeting in order to be reviewed and addressed during the meeting if necessary. Anyone participating as an observer during the meeting today may submit comments or questions at any time during the meeting via email at rrtpoinput@planrva.org or by using the online chat functions of the meeting platform. Those individuals who are observing by phone may be called upon to address the RRTPO Policy Board with their questions or comments. All comments and questions submitted during the meeting will be reviewed following the meeting, and to the extent practical, responses may be provided or posted on the Plan RVA website. Does anyone have any questions regarding the process for assuring effective facilitation of this meeting or for how members of the public may participate? Madam Chair, I do want to point out that the chat function looks like a speech bubble. You should see it on the right hand of your screen in the meeting options, if anyone wants to participate in that manner.
Thank you, Ms. Parsons. And now the procedure for electronic meetings.
Yes, ma'am, I have that on the screen now. At this point, we do not need to read these in full. They have not changed since the policy board adopted these procedures back, I believe, in April. And they have been provided as part of the agenda packet and have been consistently posted on our website for public review. If there are any questions, we can certainly take those now, but if not, I think we can move on with the rest of the agenda.
Thank you. I'm moving to item 1, the approval of the TPO Policy Board meeting agenda. If there are no comments or discussions, the chair is ready for motion.
I move the approval of the TPO Policy Board meeting agenda. This is Pat O'Bannon.
Supervisor Holland seconds.
It's moved and properly second that we approve the TPO Policy Board agenda, meeting agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please board the members, please?
I will, Madam Chair. Thank you. We'll start with Chesterfield County, Mr. Holland.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Addison.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Aye.
Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Page.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Tim.
Aye.
RMTA, Ms. Dean.
Aye.
And Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Riblet.
Aye.
Is there anyone that I missed for this vote? That concludes the voting for item number 1, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And before we move to item 2, if anyone has joined since the initial roll call, will you please make sure that our clerk has your identify that you're present so that you can be counted as present. Thank you. Item 2 is approval of the June 4, 2020 Policy Board meeting minutes. It's open for discussions, revisions, corrections. If none, we ask for a motion.
Motion to approve, David Williams.
Thank you. It's been approved by Supervisor Williams, second by Mr. Peterson, that the Policy Board meeting minutes be approved. Madam Clerk, will you please poll the members, please?
I will. The Policy Board will now be voting on item number A2, approval of the June 4th meeting minutes. Chesterfield County, Mr. Holland.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Addison.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Aye.
Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Page.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Sorry, I muted myself. Aye.
There you are, Mr. Hodges. Thank you. GRTC, Ms. Tim.
Aye.
RMTA, Ms. Dean.
Aye.
And Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Riblet.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for item A2, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Now we will, item 3, public comment period. If there are public that are joining us that would like this opportunity to make a comment, we ask that you speak now and identify yourself. Since we're here now, we will close the public comment period. Item 4 is the chair's report. I'm just wanting to humbly thank you for the appointment or the election of your chair for this year. I ask everybody's prayers and encouragement and your assistance in helping us through this upcoming year when we have a lot of exciting things that are going to be happening and being handed down, and we will all hear about them as the year passes. And so with that being said, I have no other comments at this time, and we will move to item 5, which is our Secretary's report with Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The Secretary's report, I wanted to show these were agenda items, the current work efforts. You will be hearing a little bit later this morning about one of the projects that we're working on, but the long-range plan is ongoing. We do have a survey that was made live this week, and hopefully you all received notification that that survey was available and ready for consumption. And we'd ask that you distribute those that survey as much as possible within your local channels related to priorities for the long-range plan. We are starting to wrap up the Greater RVA Transit Vision Plan, near-term strategic technical analysis. Staff is currently working with our consultant team to capture that analysis in a story map, which would make it easier for public consumption and understanding of the project. We do have a full report that will be a partner document to that story map. So we're excited about getting that to you either in August or September. The Ashland Trolley Line study is ongoing, as well as the Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan update. You will hear from Mr. Riggin on our staff later this morning about that and the Complete Streets pilot project. Those are exciting efforts that are really seeing a lot of relevance in today's world and the activities that are going on around the region related to alternative travel modes. We have an active transportation work group that continues to meet virtually. The American Planning Association Virginia chapter is still planning on holding their annual conference from September 13th to the 16th. It will be here in Richmond. So please stay tuned for any updates to that as we get closer to those dates. And the Vision Zero work group that you all instructed TAC to establish met for the first time on June 4th. And it was a very productive meeting and had lots of great participation from local government staff and interested parties. So we're excited at the staff level about taking that group forward and having meaningful conversations about ways to address Vision Zero on a regional scale. The work status report was included for your information with highlights of everything that the staff was involved with according to our UPWP and work tasks for the month of May, as well as a financial report. And because of those things were included in the agenda, we're on track to close out the year strong. We did close out the year strong, and we're looking forward to tackling the task items that are on our new work program, which took effect yesterday. Be happy to take any questions regarding that or any other activities that staff is engaged with at this time.
This is Pat O'Bannon. I had a question. Ms. Chairman, Madam Chairman. Okay.
Yes, yes,
right.
ma'am.
How's it going with public comment? How are you approaching that? You know, no meetings, I guess, but how are we going to approach that in the future?
Yes, that's an ongoing, evolving topic. We had every intention of, and had started in the fall, especially for our long-range plan process, to ramp up really directed small group public engagement, going out to the community to talk with citizen committees and groups and churches and other organizations. We developed a pretty comprehensive mailing list of folks to contact for different key organizations around the region. Obviously, all that is on its head now. We can't go to churches and we can't go to neighborhood organizations to meet. So we are being flexible. If you recall, last September, we adopted an update to our public engagement plan, which identified a number of different tools that we could use, whether that's virtual meetings or other types of technology or ways for people to be engaged in the process. We are diving into that headlong now and trying to diversify our outreach, mostly in a virtual manner. Obviously, as things evolve over the next few months, we would love to get back to meeting with people face to face if that is an option. But we're looking at things like different forms of online surveys. We're doing some visioning work. We have done, we're starting to, I think it's old hat now, but we have become very good at developing story maps, which are ways to tell the story of the projects that are ongoing and provide ways for folks in the public and other interest organizations to participate virtually, whether that's marking up a map on a website with your mouse clicks or providing comments to directed questions. We are obviously continuing to look for new ways to engage folks, and we'll include those in our quivers as those become available. We're really looking forward to partnering with VDOT and DRPT over the next few months to look at some more involved survey methods that the state is using right now, and hopefully we can adapt those on a regional scale as well. Hopefully that helped answer your question.
Yeah, and have other jurisdictions around the country been using anything different or special? Do you know of?
No, we're looking at the same thing that other jurisdictions are using, and those are the things we're investigating right now.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Now as we move into our new business, RRTPO Policy Board and Executive Committee membership changes. Today, I guess it's with a joyful and a sad heart that we thank Mr. Hodges for his leadership as chair for the Richmond Regional TPO Board. You have done an immaculate job full of commitment and dedication, Mr. Hodges, and we truly appreciate all that you have done and will continue to do for this board to move us forward. We do have a virtual presentation to you, which we can give to you when we meet face to face, or we can pick it up, bring it to you, and mail it to you. And so Mr. Parsons holds up your one-of-kind
It's wonderful.
gift.
I'm very honored.
Gift of appreciation. One thing
you.
we
It's a
didn't
unique
do.
gift.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a unique gift. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and I would like to open the floor at this time if there are any other members that have remarks for Mr. Hodges. Please feel free to speak at this time.
I just want to applaud Mr. Hodges.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and this is Supervisor Holland. I also join Mr. Bannon in applaud you and thanking you for your service. We appreciate. Sometimes we take for granted those who serve and the amount of time you put in, but let me just say that you are greatly appreciated and value your contributions to the region and to the people we all serve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's you're a great group to work with, and I'm honored to be representing the town.
All right. So as we move on, we do welcome Supervisor Bill Cota from Charles City as Vice Chair. As I stated earlier, very humble and grateful to be your chair. As CTAC and TAC have not voted, we will be bringing those membership changes to you in the near future. Again, we thank you, Mr. Hodges. We can't thank you enough. New business as we move to item 2 is our transit work group. Mr. Parsons.
Yes, ma'am. On your screen, this was an item that was on the agenda for last month, and if you recall, we had some audio issues at the end of the meeting and had to cut that short. So we're bringing that back, and I'll read through the requested action. This item is presented for Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Policy Board consideration to assemble a working group to focus on regional transit and be utilized as needed to support transit development in the region. And the following resolution is presented to the Policy Board for approval. That the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Policy Board directs the RRTPO Technical Advisory Committee to establish a transit work group to begin immediate work towards development of a regional public transportation plan. The background on this request is twofold. One, we have not specifically addressed transit as a focus area in an ongoing basis at the TPO level, and establishment of this work group would allow a select group appointed by the policy board and the TAC to have ongoing discussions related to transit and transit development. Specifically, as part of the Central Virginia Transportation Authority legislation by the 2020 General Assembly, this authority was given the responsibility to develop transportation priorities and administer funds generated through fuel and sales use taxes to projects in the Richmond region. One of those components of the legislation was that the CVTA is called to utilize GRTC and the RRTPO to develop a plan for regional public transportation within this planning district. This is in addition to the work that we have ongoing with our long-range transportation plan and other existing activities. So at this point, the RRTPO structure does not include a committee specifically tasked with addressing transit. And as we think about more equitable transportation options and services for folks in the Richmond region, this work group would help not only provide a forum for more transparent regional conversations, but it would allow us to specifically address the requirements set forth in the CVTA organizing legislation. I think that the additional point is that our understanding is that revenues are not allowed to be expended until priorities are established for transit through this regional transit plan. So it's a timely matter.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Parsons. Discussion or motion on this?
Chair Peterson,
This is Mr. Duran.
I think it's Nova Peterson.
Mr. Peterson. Thank you, Supervisor Peterson.
Madam Chair, this is Kevin Carroll. I couldn't understand a word that he said.
Did he make a motion? I'll second it. This is Pat O'Bannon. And it is very difficult, Mr. Peterson. For some reason, there's a big echo.
Mr. Peterson, you want to unmute?
I'm unmuted now. I don't know what's going on.
There was a motion from Mr. Peterson, and this is Pat O'Bannon. I seconded it. So, and the resolution is right there in front of us.
Ms. Mueller,
Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair, it might be helpful if Ms. Mueller or Mr. Parsons express the motion offered by Mr. Peterson since he's having audio difficulty. I believe it was to a motion to approve the resolution as presented to establish the work group.
This is Ms. Mueller. I can confirm that. I believe Mr. Peterson was making the motion for the policy board to direct TAC to establish the transit work group. Should I go ahead and take the roll call?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The policy board will now be voting on item B2, the transit work group. Chesterfield County, Mr. Holland.
Thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Addison.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour. Mr. Spoonhauer, are you still with us? Moving on, Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Henrico County, Miss O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton.
Aye.
New Kent County, Miss Page.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
GRTC, Miss Tim.
Aye.
RMTA, Miss Dean.
Aye.
Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Riblett.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for item number B2.
Thank you. Now moving on to item number 3, a small scale round for regional project selection. Mr. Parsons.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You follow along on your screen. Is that feedback coming from me? The requested action is review and approval of the final regional project candidate pool to develop our regional smart scale applications. Some of the background, we have discussed this in the past, but to follow up for the folks who may not be as involved. In addition to individual local smart scale applications, which many of you are engaged with, we are able to apply for 10 regionally significant projects through round 4 of the Smart Scale program that would benefit the TPO region. We took a request from member organizations to submit individual projects to be considered as part of the regional applications. And the candidate project pool, we were able this round to submit pre-applications for screening and suggestions by VDOT staff. That pre-application pool, we were able to put in 12 projects to get comments back. Now the task is to narrow that list from 12 to 10 for final application. VDOT released the screening comments for the 12 pre-applications on June 19th. These screening comments revealed that 2 of the 12 pre-applications were fully screened in already, and the remaining 10 projects were conditionally screened in, so that's a good result. There weren't any that were rejected. The ones that were conditionally screened in need additional details filled out before the application is considered complete. So the TAC met on June 25th for a special call meeting to discuss these 12 projects and to make a recommendation for the policy board to finalize the final 10. So essentially what needs to happen today is policy board needs to discuss the 12 projects and reduce that list from 12 to 10 for final application. Some background on the TAC discussion. TAC discussed, it really focused on regional significance of the projects and their readiness for a full application. The 3 bullets on your screen, the 2 I-64 expansion projects in New Kent County are important for the region and need to be included in smart scale consideration. New Kent County also submitted pre-applications for both of these projects. There is an I-95 southbound auxiliary lane project. It may not be fully ready for application if there isn't more planned background for the project, such as an interchange modification report or other justifiable plans. Staff will continue to work with VDOT to confirm the readiness of this project, but the thought is that it is not ready for application at this time. And then finally, due to negative selection trends for projects with higher costs in recent smart scale cycles, the I-95 Route 10 project in Chesterfield was highlighted as a potential candidate to come off the list. With that discussion being said, TAC selected the following order for recommendation to you today. There are regional projects for submission: National to Petersburg Trail, Chickahominy River Crossing, a Route 360 Courthouse Road intersection improvement, the Ashland to Petersburg Trail, Chester Linear Park Extension, and Chester Road, Powhite southbound at Chippenham, capacity and safety improvements, Ashland to Petersburg Trail, US 1, Walmsley to Belmead, Broad Street Streetscape with a Pulse BRT expansion, Phase 1, Powhite northbound at Chippenham, capacity and safety improvements, the southbound 288 continuous HSR lane from West Creek Parkway to Route 711. I-64 westbound widening from exit 211 to exit 205. And I-64 eastbound widening from exit 205 to exit 211. Now, this is the touchy part of the conversation attack. Because New Kent County submitted pre-applications themselves, in addition to the regional applications that the TPO submitted for those two I-64 projects. If New Kent chooses to submit one or both I-64 projects as local smart scale applications, the project or projects will not be submitted as regional projects. The alternate projects will be submitted in their place in the order presented below. And we did attach VDOT comments on each of the candidate projects in addition to the staff report. So the action requested is that the Richmond Regional TPO approves the candidate regional projects for smart scale Round 4 applications as presented. Obviously, this is up for alteration if there's a need to, but I believe I would at this point turn it back over to Chairman Page to see if there's any discussion to be had.
I am opening the floor for discussion. After and in doing so, I would like to say that New Kent County first made a decision that they wanted the TPO to apply, and that we were going to apply. It was recommended that we wait and let the TPO apply, and we did. And then we had got other communication that both Kent and the TPO should apply. So we did do the pre-application. However, after speaking with our planning, county administrator and our board of supervisors, it was decided and agreed upon that we would submit the application through the TPO regional board. Is there any other discussion or comments? They're welcome at this time.
Madam Chair, Kevin Carroll. So does that mean that they're pulling the other applications and it's strictly going to go through the TPO, number one, and number two? How does that affect the way that the funds would be distributed to pay for the project? Would it come from the regional pot or come from the statewide pot?
It is the desire that New Kent will pull their pre-application and go through the regional board. And it's two projects because it has been submitted before as just I-64 widening east and westbound. It was a recommendation that we divide it, that we split it up and do the westbound and submit for the eastbound. So it will be through the regional, if I'm correct in saying it, Mr. Parsons.
That is correct. With the county not submitting the full applications, the district grant funds would not be the first choice for these projects anymore. I would ask that if Ms. McAdory or Mr. Riblet wants to add any more information on the funds eligibility, I'd certainly welcome that too.
Chet, this is Mark Riblet. You are correct. With the MPO submitting, it would be eligible for the statewide high priority pot and not the district grant pot. You are correct.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll, does that answer your question?
It does. My concern was that those two projects would take up a lot of the district funds. So if it's going to be through the statewide pot, then I think that's a better option.
This is John Lumpkins, and I hear what you're saying, and so I move that we follow the recommendation, and with the understanding New Kent is not going to submit, and we will leave their projects in with the regional projects as presented.
Do we have a second for that motion?
No, Peterson, second.
It's been moved and properly second that we recommendations that were handed by the TAC. Madam Clerk, will you please poll members, please?
Yes, ma'am. The policy board will now be voting on item B3, Smart Scale Round 4 Regional Project Selection. Chesterfield County, Mr. Holland.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Gray. Moving on, Mr. Addison.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Aye.
Mr. Lumpkins.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. O'Bannon.
Aye.
Mr. Thornton.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Page.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Tim.
Aye.
RMTA, Ms. Dean.
Aye.
Secretary of Transportation Designee, Mr. Riblet.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for item number B3, Smart Scale.
Thank you. At this time, item number 4 will be the Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan Update and Complete Street Toolbox. And this will be presented by Mr. Phil Riggins. Mr. Riggins, thank you. Mr. Reagan, are you available? Either he isn't or he can't hear, one or the other. So since he's not available for update at this time, can we move on and put this on the our next agenda for our next meeting? Or are you prepared to, do we have anyone else prepared to do it, Mr. Parsons?
Can we give him just a second? I see him.
Okay.
He's on the screen trying to get connected.
Okay, we understand that.
Can y'all acknowledge? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I hear
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Okay. Having a little panic there. Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for any delays. Can everyone see the active transportation page now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. So I wanted to walk you through a little bit of the progress we've made with our active transportation and our complete streets efforts. And as Chet mentioned earlier, we have several story maps we've been working on. And in this particular case, this Richmond Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Infrastructure Map has been developed with the help of our staff, including especially Dan Mata, who is our Wilder Fellow. We've got an overview here that kind of gets into the purpose, why we're doing this and how it's advising our update to our Richmond Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, which is a part of the Long Range Transportation Plan Connect RVA 2045. But we've been working with our steering committee and developing this map, a regional map that goes through all of our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in the region, and trying to define, bike lanes, sidewalk, multi-use paths, all of that. The overview is available in here. We've been working on this quite a while, but we wanted to, I guess, to best illustrate it, we wanted to show some of the content in one of the specific locations. We've got tabs here across the top for each locality, but Ashland, as always, ends up being a good microcosm for the region. So I'll just get into a little bit of what Ashland has. Each of the locations, we've worked with the localities to get the GIS information and the data for bicycle infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, and we'll get into a little bit more of what we've assembled here. But for each of these story maps, there's a little bit of narrative here that kind of summarizes for each locality. I'm sorry, this is taking a little longer to build, but we have the overall map like I say, this is pinpointed into the town of Ashland, but illustrates the bicycle infrastructure. When this does load, I'll be able to show you the sidewalk as well. There we go. So in that little purple area, that's the town of Ashland. Blue is the sidewalk infrastructure within the town. And then the green indicates some bicycle infrastructure, which is also duplicated in a few of these locations. So here's the pedestrian isolated. And again, we have this for all of these localities. Bicycle infrastructure isolated, which you can see, Railroad Avenue here. We have regional bicycle connections, which obviously the town of Ashland has US Bicycle Route 1, 76, and the East Coast Greenway all flowing through the town, center of the universe, center of the biking universe. We have, for each locality, we have some future tabs, and at this point, we don't have something listed on Ashland outside of the Ashland to Petersburg or trolley line trail here in the, and I'll bump that up just a little bit so you can see this little green dotted line through here is marking that trolley line trail. But we also try to keep track for all the localities, pedestrian injuries and fatalities. As this is building here, we have gray are injuries. And then fortunately, we don't have any fatalities in the town of Ashland. This is over the period of January 2013 to May 2019. And we are going to update this TREDS data soon to indicate, include the last year as well. Under cyclist injuries, we do have a few more in that area, and then including one death. And for each of these, you can click on them and get some of the details of, what may have happened in this particular crash. You have that information for all of those. So we, like I say, we have this for each of the localities, so I won't go into further details on that. But we have, as a part of the long-range transportation plan, also been gathering needs. And we've had a wiki map, which allows anyone who uses this map to place issues, concerns, future needs, things like that, in regards to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. So, and this is still alive. This is still live. They're still taking comments on this as part of our public outreach on this. We've had several public meetings where we received information from different stakeholder groups. But as this is loading here, it'll show some different dots and lines that were placed by the public or our staff as we received information from them. During our steering committee meeting last week with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Group, we got, we spread this to that group, and we're hoping to get more information from them, from each of the localities, as they're able to spread this around. So as I say, this is, again, a big map of the region. Zoom in, we've got several different points where, pedestrian infrastructure perhaps is needed. In this, we've got, again, all around the region, different pedestrian needs. Out in Powhatan, we even have some information about including potential links to the Powhatan State Park around Route 711. So this map is going to continue to be worked on and developed, and so I wanted to just make you aware of that, and we can provide links to that as well. The Complete Streets effort, this is a separate effort, but I think many of you and the staffs from each of the localities helped participate in this effort. About this time last year, we did a series of workshops with the town of Ashland, Smart Growth America, and National Complete Streets Coalition. But, it goes through what are complete streets, which I believe this committee, this board has gone over that pretty extensively, but we do that update. We kind of walk through some of those, what are complete streets. It's a very nice story map, again, done by our staff, and we've tried to get some very attractive, photos to go along with all of this. But the main impetus of this was we had a pilot with the town of Ashland, and I will go ahead and skip to that part. So we worked with Smart Growth America on this, and a series of meetings in Ashland. So as we gathered that information, we've continued to visit with Ashland and look at some of these areas of need. And, Route 1 goes through the town of Ashland that kind of presents a more dangerous walking, really safe walking area. So we focused on some of the corridors there, especially England Street, working with several different partners in this effort. But I'm going to get down. These are policies, and I think in our region we decided to only work towards a toolkit, suggestions for how to best implement some complete streets policy ideas. But we could scroll through all this, and get all of the different recommendations. Some recent updates here. This is part of this is on Robinson Street, just one street over from England. But this is new, new curb cuts and sidewalk crosswalks, I should say, to connect along the sidewalks to make it, much more safe for pedestrians and all users. Really, that's the goal with complete streets, is not just to make it safer for one type of user, but with curb cuts that would allow us someone in a wheelchair, for example, to be able to move through that area. So as I say, we used Ashland as a pilot for all this. There have been some complete streets efforts made in the town. We had the recommendations as we developed, and we have had for a long time our documents from Smart Growth America that we have posted to our website. But again, series of the recommendations. I wanted to get to their effort in Ashland recently. They did some tactical urbanism on safe streets, and closed some of the streets to help create more space. This is along Railroad Avenue, to create more space. It's an effort called Parking to Patio, and outside dining is preferred, and so allowing more of that space outside of the restaurants onto the street area. This is a complete streets effort, taking some of that space that was for automobiles and repurposing it for pedestrians, cyclists, and in this case also outside dining. So a very good complete streets effort done by the town. I think this is going to continue for a few more weeks here, but it's allowed some of these restaurants to continue to be open, allowed for people to continue visiting within the town without staying indoors and perhaps spreading the virus. So it's a good initiative and allowed that to continue. Regionally, I just wanted to get into this part in closing. We have been going through a lot of the principles, and this is something our office has been working on for a couple of years now. You may have seen this chart a few times. This is some of our outreach with different localities, staffs to assess what elements of complete streets they may have in use in their locality. And this is from almost 2 years ago now, but as we look through all this, every locality has some form of complete streets. So in our effort, we've continued to map a lot of infrastructure and regional examples, but as we went through this, we tried to highlight some of those and map them to whether it's in this case bus congestion and how the bike lanes, excuse me, bus only lanes, but bus stops. I'm sorry, this is loading slower than I expected it to. we've been working with all localities, even outside of this, to try to have, better amenities and sidewalk, that first mile, last mile connection to those bus stops. But in this particular case, you don't see sidewalk, there is no shelter, but there is at least now, better signage. There's a nice bench, but, trying to assess through this how we can make these better connections and more equitable in some of these neighborhoods as well. Again, GRTC has some parking rides and how they structure those, but it's recommending some of the better stops. I won't go in much further, but I just want to say we do go through several different localities. That was an example in Powhatan, angled parking options. So we tried to touch on every locality to try to illustrate some of the examples of complete streets. I think I've reached about the limit of my time, and especially my computer seems to be slowing down quite a bit. So I think I'll just say that we've also got a list of the resources here, and some of the examples that we followed, other plans and so on. But I think that's about all I've got for y'all today. If you have any questions.
Okay,
Nice job, Mr. Riggin.
Of course, Mr. Hodges.
So, Mr. Riggins, we thank you for a nice job in your presentation. Are there any other questions of Mr. Riggins?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
Is that presentation posted online somewhere where I can get a copy of it?
Yes, we will make sure that the policy board does have links to this. This is all live, and we're going to continue to update those. I will work with Nicole to make sure that we have the links to everyone if they aren't already posted to our website.
Great, thank you. Great presentation. I just want to read it thoroughly.
Of course, that's the whole goal, is to make sure that we spread this around to everybody who wants to see it. Thank you.
Thank you again. As we move on to agency and committee reports, we will have our transportation agency updates, starting with VDOT.
Good morning, thank you. Just a quick update on the CTB meeting last month. Noteworthy that they did take action on the approval of the annual safety performance targets for calendar year 2021. That information will be coming back to TAC and the MPO later this year for a request to adopt safety targets as well. The next CTB meeting is later this month. They're going back to a 2-day schedule where the workshop is on July 14th and the action item meeting is on the 15th. They're expected to continue being virtual meetings at this time, just like the last several meetings have been. Regarding Smart Scale, Chet did a good job updating where we are with Smart Scale right now. I will tell you that out of the 96 pre-applications in the district as a whole, 91 of them were screened in or either conditionally or fully. And that is very consistent with the track record of all applications statewide. Our district planning folks are certainly working with all applicants to make sure we can assist in any way possible to make sure that applications are fully developed for the final submission. Speaking of final submission, the Smart Portal does close for final applications, currently scheduled to be August 3rd at 5 p.m. There is a potential that that could be extended somewhat. We will likely know later this month if in fact that will happen, but as of right now, the deadline is August 3rd, so we're about a month away. Regarding 6-year plan development, really no change from our update last month. We are certainly developing FAQs with the central office and secretary's office regarding a possible update to the 6-year plan that in theory could occur towards the end of this calendar year. Certainly we will provide and make sure Chet has any updates as they are available. We've talked to you the last several months about interstate studies underway for I-95 and 64. Those really are no different than what we have shared in previous meetings. Next steps for those are expected in the summertime for both, in terms of capital improvements potentially being presented to the CTB later this summer, and public meetings starting later this summer for the I-64 corridor study. Noteworthy to mention that I-85 and I-295 studies are being started right now in terms of looking at both of those routes entirely within the Richmond district. The expectation is that we will have similar approaches to 85 and 295, excuse me, that we did on 95 and 64. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, we thank you for your update. Now we will have DRPT.
Good morning. This is Jennifer DeBrule for DRPT. Very similar to the update for VDOT. We are still also in a holding pattern on our update to the 6-year improvement program. Unlike VDOT, we have some critical projects, things like transit operating and assistance to our commuter assistance programs that we allocate on an annual basis. Wanted to make sure that we continued that vital funding to those agencies. So we did take some project additions to the Commonwealth Transportation Board at their June meeting. The links to those allocations that were made are available in our report. We are going to continue to evaluate allocations based on the revenue projections, and we are hoping to have a better assessment of that in September. We've also been notified of 2 federal innovation grant awards that have been made to DRPT. The first one is through FTA's Mobility for All grant program, and we're going to be using that funding to develop a new statewide transportation navigator website. We're collaborating with Virginia Navigator, which is a Chesterfield County-based nonprofit that provides a free web-based resource for populations associated with aging, disabilities, post-military life, and overall well-being. So we're looking forward to working with them to provide a statewide repository of all transit and human service transportation opportunities that are available for folks who need those resources. Additionally, we were informed that we received an integrated mobility innovation grant that will fund the development of an information technology-based multi-passenger transportation service, or something that we refer to as microtransit. We are going to pilot this in 2 rural areas of the state. We're working with Bay Transit in Gloucester and Mountain Empire Older Citizens in Southwest Virginia. We're looking forward to learning from that pilot with the potential of advancing other microtransit projects around the state in the future. We've got a workshop coming up on our Section 5310 Human Service Transportation Program. That's going to be a web-based workshop on Monday, July 13th. So even though we haven't made our fiscal year 21 allocations yet, we are already going ahead and looking towards our fiscal 22 process as well. And finally, I'll mention our Virginia Breeze Intercity Bus Service. This is our state-supported intercity bus program. All of our routes, or our existing route, which connects Blacksburg to Washington, D.C., was suspended back in April due to the impacts of the pandemic. We are going to restart that service on July 24th. And then we have 2 new routes that we have been working on for about a year. One of those routes will include service through Richmond, and we are anticipating that new route that serves Richmond to begin in early August. So we'll make sure that we get some information over to Mr. Parsons and the TPO, so you'll have access to that information. Of course, the timing of that and the operational requirements are going to be dependent on how things continue to progress in terms of COVID-19. Madam Chair, that concludes our report for this month.
We thank you so much for your updated report. Do we have any questions or discussions on the Civil Department report? I'm sorry. Again, thank you both. Moving on to other business, we are again opening our public comment period. If there's anyone that has joined us from the public that has comments that you would like to express, we give you an opportunity now to have the floor. been heard, we will close our public comment period. Future meeting topics is number 2 on the other business, and we discussed this in our board meeting about canceling our August 6th meeting because of a lack of agenda items. And and we did discuss that if anything came up during the completion of the month of July, that we would announce that we would be having a meeting.
Madam Chair, Frank
Now,
Thornton.
good morning, Mr. Thornton.
Yes, good morning to you. Listen, I would like to suggest for the future, for one of our meetings, topic we kind of covered a few minutes ago, and that is, I think it would be fruitful on our part for us to take one of our meetings to talk about how to get more public comment. When that question came up earlier, I was thinking about, do we even do PSAs for that? You know, some of us been talking about this for years, how we have this part of, as a portion of our program, but the public is not aware. So maybe, I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, that we should just have a meeting ourselves and kind of discuss this topic of how what we think could be efficacious and getting the public more involved and calling in and finding out what it is that we do. Those are just some of my ideas.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, this is Supervisor Holland. Certainly, Mr. Thornton, you have certainly been one who's advocated that very strongly, and I endorsed the idea. Is it possible or feasible that we can do a better network of sharing via our localities, via the communication methods that we share in our localities? We have our own systems in place with PSAs, and maybe there's something we could have dedicated time, space to handle that. Is that an ideal suggestion that's worthy of consideration?
I believe absolutely, absolutely it is. I know that we all publicize when we, especially now when we have our board meetings, we encourage public engagement. I think that if we do, that it becomes maybe an educational tool for our public to know exactly what the TPO does. I credit Mr. Parsons and his team for going out through the localities and trying to educate our public as well as our board on our role. However, I think that when we get multiple questions about road conditions and other forms of transportation, that we could better equip our public if they were indeed actively engaged in our meetings.
I think Mr. Thornton's got a good idea. Taking one of our meetings and basically having a great response session that's necessary and trying to figure out how to make this a little more exciting against the public, so to really want to have some.
So, in response to you, yes, I'm sorry.
Pat O'Bannon. I've had town meetings in the past and taken pieces of what the TPO does. For instance, the bicycle and sidewalk part of it, you know, I've had those. But right now I am having a virtual town meeting at the end of this month, but we need to reach people at all levels. So I think brainstorming is great, but I will also mention that if we could do something on regular television or something there right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's very difficult to, and Mr. Parsons mentioned this, it's very difficult to have a meeting at a church or at in a location. And virtual meetings require that someone have their computer set, you know, and have the ability to go to the meeting or a Zoom or something like that. And I think it'd be great to have the meeting. I think that's what Mr. Peterson was saying. He was agreeing that it'd be great to have a brainstorming session. But again, right now, it's the only reason it's difficult is because of the pandemic. So, I mean, right now, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So Kevin Carroll from Chesterfield. You know, if you go to our website, we certainly have a page dedicated to this at the Chesterfield County website. Talks about the organization, who serves from our locality, but I don't think that's enough to get the message out, especially since several times we've had the meetings where there's no public comment whatsoever. Perhaps maybe doing a news story or some type of interview with maybe someone from WRVA, something else to get it out to the community about what the committee does, with maybe John Reed, WRVA as an example in the morning, or some other John Fredericks, some other radio personality, and a TV interview perhaps to generate some public interest with talking about all the localities that participate in this and where they need to go to actually get more information on this. There are a lot of people who listen to these different radio shows, and certainly, you know, if you put an advertisement in a newspaper, someone may get it, may not get it. Certainly, I think through our PR people from all of our localities, maybe they could work more collaboratively together and create their own email stream where they can all talk and say, okay, we have an upcoming meeting coming out. Let's make sure we push this out to all of our media outlets to let the people know that this is something going on. And then, of course, we can actually talk about it at our board meetings and say, hey, by the way, this is the committee that we all serve on, and this is something you may want to take a look at. Just some suggestions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Madam Chair, Jim Holland, I think that's an excellent suggestion. And maybe if we had talking points, bullet points that should be shared timely, that might be helpful as well. But I agree. I think communicating outwardly will also serve all of us well. But I agree.
So, Mr. Thornton, you have started again, and we're grateful to that, a discussion. So we will indeed put this on our agenda for our next meeting, where we can have the opportunity and time set aside to brainstorm. And it is the ask of the chair that everyone would submit your suggestions. If you have them before the meeting, submit them so that we can organize them and go through and talk about how we can indeed and inform our public and get them to participate during our public comment period. And if it's no more than, because we're virtual now, if it's no more than just reading their comments, they will have the information as to where to get it to and when to get it to us in a timely manner. So if we would place that, Mr. Parsons, on our next meeting agenda on the top. Thank you, sir, for that. Any other future meeting topics of interest?
Madam Chair, this
so
is
we'll
Jim
move
Hall.
on to.
Madam Chair, one brief comment, if this in order, regarding that is the new legislation that was approved by regional transportation by the General Assembly, signed by the governor. It's my understanding it was delayed until October 1st for implementation. If this is something that certainly we should be all apprised of, the legislation, its impact, and how it can better serve the region.
Yes, sir. And thank you so much, Supervisor Holland, for that. If we have no further meeting topics, And we will move on to our committee, our member comments. Hearing none. And as we discussed previously, our August meeting has been canceled as of now. If there's a change, we absolutely will get the notification out to you in a timely manner. If there are no more comments, we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Chairman. John Hodges.
I second that, Supervisor Holland, second that motion.
All right. We ask our clerk to poll our members.
I think, I'm not sure. I think technically,
Yeah.
you
Madam
You
Chair,
did.
we're not going to need a roll call on the adjournment.
That's
if you-
correct.
Madam Chairman, if you
Okay.
say, if there is no more business to come before this board, the meeting is adjourned. You can just say that. So thank you.
That will
Happy
suffice.
4th to everyone. Happy 4th to everyone. Jim Holland here. Have a happy 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great, same.
Goodbye.
Yes, everybody enjoy the
Have a
holiday.
safe and happy 4th of July. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.